Good morning, and thank you for talking with us today on our weekly Zoom chat where we get questions answered from things in the political field young voters just don't really know. I am Fabien. This is my co-host Jaiden, and today we are going to interview Miss Billie Helean.
Now, Ms. Helean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. I'd be glad to. So I am a teacher. I teach first grade at Stapleton Elementary in Rio Rancho, and go Coyotes. Woohoo. I also am the president of Rio Rancho School Employees Union. It's the educator and staff union for the public schools. And I'm also running for the New Mexico House of Representatives in District 57, which is on the northwest side of Rio Rancho. I'm also married to my husband. It'll be 20 years in November. And my daughter is 19 and a sophomore at UNM.
All right, awesome. I love that answer. Yeah. So, Fabian, you want to get started? First question.
So for the very first question, being a first grade teacher is a pretty big experience from being a state representative. What made you want to run for this? Like, what was your goal in achieving this position?
You know, so that's a question I get asked a lot, and it's one that I have a ready answer for because it was something I really thought about before I decided to run. You know, as a first grade teacher, I see what happens to families in our district all the time, and I see what happens to the kids and how the decisions that are made at the state level, how those impact families. And, you know, I consider myself already a public servant as a teacher. And when this opportunity came along to run for office, I felt like it would be a really great opportunity for me to serve my community on a deeper level, and to help affect the changes that families need. So it's a pretty simple answer, but it's deep to me because I'm very passionate about service, very passionate about making sure that families have what they need to succeed. And so this seemed like a very logical step to me to make that happen.
Yeah, awesome. I like that. An individual's responsibility to the community, and you want to go on the next level. I really like that. So, obviously, one of your main motives to change is the school system. What's the biggest thing you want to see happen while you're in office?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. You know, in a very broad sense, I think that we need to make sure that our public schools are community schools. So they serve every aspect of a child's life, from not just educating and reading and writing and math and all those things that we expect, but also providing services that students may not be able to get at home. So being able to feed students and being able to take care of their health needs and their mental health needs, which is a really big gap right now. So there are a lot of things that we need to work on, but quite frankly, I think the number one thing I think we need to work on for folks is mental health, and that starts very young. So being able to provide mental health services to students starting in preschool and kindergarten is really valuable, and it's something I'd like to see us expand.
Oh yeah, mental health is super valuable. I hope that one day they're going to teach meditation as soon as elementary school. That's a hope for mine. So yeah, with the pandemic.
Class. Back to first grade.
Awesome. Oh yeah, I need to go back.
Come on, I'll take you back.
I'll fit right in. So I was going to ask, so with the pandemic going on, what's the biggest change you've noticed with the kids? Have you noticed that their mental health has started to decline?
Absolutely. You know, being stuck at home and not being with their friends, and you know, the whole gamut of it. And there is concern. You know, they're smart. Kids are really in tune with the community and what's happening with people's hearts and minds, and they know that people are worried. You know, I've had students. I've been teaching virtually. Monday we come back live in the classroom, and a few of my students have expressed their concern and their worry for what it's going to be like when we go back into the classroom on Monday. And that concern worries me because I don't feel like, you know, students should be concerned and worried for their own health and safety and the health and safety of their families. It's something that it's tough. It's a really hard situation for my students.
Oh, definitely. And then I remember being as a kid, you're always thinking that adults know everything. And then to see with all the craziness going on, finding out that maybe they're not as stable as we believe. What about on the teachers' end? What are the struggles that you guys are facing other than just having to do everything virtual?
Teaching virtually since March has been really challenging. It has a whole level of complexity to it, and it adds I know that families see that their teachers are only meeting with their students for a very short period of time, but behind the scenes, it's really so much work because everything that we plan, everything that we do with the students has another layer of it, trying to feel and think about how is it going to be received digitally from the student, and what is that experience going to be like for them, and is it going to have impact for them. um, Teaching and education is a very personable thing. It's a very emotional and human connected activity, and so digital teaching is much more difficult because it's hard to get across that warmth and personal connection that you have with students in the classroom. And it's been really, really challenging to teach digitally. It's definitely not the preferred way to teach. And I think any good educator would tell you that it's better to have kids in a seat in a classroom. But ultimately, if we can provide services for students and keep them safe at the same time, I think that's really important. That's probably the most important thing, because you can't teach a student who's sick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, very.
And so, yeah, it's been tough.
Yeah, it's really hard because it's either, a lot of them, they're thinking of it as it's either one or the other. They stay at home or they go to school all the way. And then it's just about
Right.
finding that balance to where we can safely bring them back to school, so that they can get also just the socialization of kids. That's so important.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then people always think about the health effects of corona, but what about the health effects of isolation? All that.
Yes. And the mental effects of isolation are significant. When you have students telling you that they're lonely and that they miss their friends, and especially older students in middle school and high school, those relationships are the core of success for students in middle school and high school. And so having folks being at home and learning from home and not having that social interaction with their peers is really, really tough mentally and emotionally, for sure.
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask, so you're a teacher and your goal in life is to teach the generation that's coming of age. And sometimes, most times, even you yourself can be taught by the kids that you're learning. What's the
Mm-hmm.
most vital lesson that you've learned as a teacher and that you've come to realize?
Wow, that's a really good question. Honestly, I think the most valuable lesson that I've learned, it kind of points back to your question actually, is that we do need to listen to kids. We need to listen to kids from the minute they're born until they die. I mean, we need to just listen to people in general, really. But I think people have a habit of thinking that kids don't have the experience and they don't have the knowledge to make good decisions, or to be advocates for different things. But you look at different folks like Greta Thunberg, who was such a great advocate for environmental causes, and young people. Look at Malala Yousafzai. She's another very young person who has been an advocate for education across the world, especially for girls. And if we silence young voices, we silence a part of the population that will make decisions that will affect the entire world eventually. And silencing voices, all that does is stifle creativity. It stifles ingenuity. And I've seen some really great things come from kids, some really creative ideas and some solutions that I don't think adults would think of, because it's a fresh perspective. And I think fresh perspective is always very welcome. So I think young voices need to speak up. And I hope to be elected so that I can help bring those young voices to the government in the state of New Mexico so that we can have that perspective. It's very valuable.
I like that. That is very valuable. So I'm gonna ask you a little bit of a complex question. Why do you think kids can be more creative than adults at times?
I think they're not jaded. They haven't, they haven't lived life. They haven't had those
Yeah.
experiences that stifle them. And as we get older, I'm relearning. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm relearning how to be vocal. I'm relearning how to be brave and bold with new ideas, and to not let people stifle me. And I think that the kids, they don't have people who've been telling them for years and years and years that their voices aren't valuable. And so they have the opportunity. They don't have that experience of, oh, I can't say this because if I say it, I'm going to get in trouble. Or, oh, if I say this, somebody's going to judge me. It takes a while to learn to be silent. And a lot of kids haven't learned that yet. And so because they haven't learned it, they're bold. and they're willing to share their ideas. Sometimes they're a little harsh, but that's
Yeah.
okay. um, and so I think that's really the crux of it, is that they're fresh. Nobody's jaded them yet, and they're ready to share.
Yeah, awesome. And so like they're not limited by anything. How do you think we can teach them to be limitless, to not let anyone else affect their well-being?
Well, that's part of my job as a teacher. It's what I see as a teacher, is that I have an opportunity to help kids find their passion and to grow in that passion for whatever it is that they love. I mean, and it runs the gamut. I've got kids. I had a kid last year. She wanted to be, what is it called? The gladiators, the like the ones that are on TV. And she
Oh,
wanted gladiator. That was her goal. And so I helped her do projects and research about what it meant to be a gladiator. How does that work? What does it look like? It's not just what you see on TV. What is that actually? And so even in first grade, this little kid who wanted to be a gladiator, she learned a lot about like what it means to be a gladiator, and it fueled that fire for her. And I think that's what we need to do. Instead of dousing the flame, we need to actually ignite it and make sure that kids grow in the passions that they have. And if we do that,
yeah,
I think they'll be willing to share their thoughts and be bold.
Oh yeah.
yeah. They need to grow because everyone's an individual, and someone might not be as good as math as they are at writing. And instead of shunning them for that, we should let them excel in writing and all that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because one of the things that we talk a lot about is, when I was in high school, I graduated in 1988, and back then we had wood shop, car shop, and all those other, the electives that helped kids sort of narrow what they wanted to do. Not everybody's built for college. Some people are built to work on cars. Some people are built to build houses, and we would fail without those folks. And so I think being able to, one of the other things I'd like to see us do for education is for upper grades and higher ed, open up more opportunities that are geared towards folks like that. Like my husband, he's a home builder. He builds homes in Santa Fe. He makes a great living doing it, and he loves working with wood. That's what he does, and he's so good at it. And I love that he has built a career around doing something that he loves. It's pretty neat, and it's nice to see someone's passion come forward.
Yeah, I can attest for that. Where all that they told me throughout middle school and high school is that I need to go to college, that there's no other option. You have to go to college. You have to go. But I definitely didn't feel that was a way for me. And I'm so glad I pulled trigger on myself to be self-dependent. I don't have to go with school. And a lot of my learning I learned on my own, and then learned from teachers like you that go beyond what the school just has to offer. It goes beyond the books, the textbooks, and goes into actually personal connection. I like that. Right,
and it's nice because it's so fulfilling for yourself to do something that you really love. And I can speak to that personally too, but I'll do that later.
So when you were 18, freshly graduated from high school, whole world is at your doorstep. Did you think that you would just become a teacher and that you wanted to help the younger audience get better in life, or did you have different pathways of where you wanted to choose?
Oh, my path diverged so big time. I always wanted to be a teacher. When I was in fourth grade, I had a really awesome teacher. His name was Mr. Mullen, and he helped me be me. He was a safe teacher. He was a place where I could just be myself, and I didn't have to worry about people judging me. And he lit the fire in me that made me want to be a teacher, because I just saw that and I felt like really connected to that idea that a teacher can provide a safe place where people can be themselves. So anyway, I wanted to be a teacher all my life. And when I graduated from high school, I tried, but I had a really tough childhood and I didn't know how to go to college. I literally didn't know how to go to college. And I tried. I went to the local community college and I dropped out after a year. And then I worked and did some other things. I've done so many different kinds of jobs from 18 until I was 43. I was a secretary. I owned my own business. I worked at restaurants. I survived,
You got a
I
taste of
survived
everything.
what I had to survive. But in 2011, I actually read a book called Breaking Night by an author named Liz Murray. And it's her story of surviving childhood abuse and neglect. And eventually she ended up going to college when she was an older student. She was a non-traditional student. And she was able to go to Harvard, and she got the New York Times scholarship after having been homeless for years. And when I closed the cover of that book, I'll never forget, I turned to my husband and I said, I have to go back to school. If she can do it, then I can. And so I went back to college in 2011. And I graduated in 2013, in December of 2013, with my teaching degree. And I started teaching January of 2014. And it goes back to what I was saying before. We have to help people find their passion and pursue their passion, because it's what I've always wanted to do. And it's incredible what that's done for my heart and soul, because doing what I'm passionate about has made me feel more confident. It's made me feel like I can do anything I set my mind to, because I accomplished this thing that I've wanted all my life. And I really, really hope to be the kind of person who can instill that passion in other people, and to help them see that it is limitless. Even if you're 43 years old, you can still go back to school and you can still pursue the thing that you're passionate about. There's no set date that says you have to stop doing that thing that you love. There's just not. So do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
I agree 100%. All right. So yeah, let's switch gears and talk more about the legislation. Can you tell us about just legislation in general, and why is it important for our community?
Absolutely, especially on a state and local level. You know, when we talk about legislation, we see very directly, very locally, how decisions in the government affect our community. And so what happens is we end up passing laws and instilling new things that we're going to do at the state level, and then those actually filter up. Very rarely does policy filter down from the federal government to local level. And so a really good idea of that is when we think about voting, and we think about, my gosh, the word just escaped me. Happens all the time lately. I'm not going to remember right now. That's okay. When we think about voting, but we think about how, you know, when we vote, it's, I wish I could remember the word. Each state is given a certain number of votes that go for the election, instead of it's a one vote, one person, and all of us, the popular vote. It's not popular vote. And so there's this movement right now where on a local level, people are talking about, let's do popular vote nationally, but they have to have a certain number of states to make that happen. And so from a local level, it's going up to the federal level. If enough states sign on, then we will have popular vote. And so it's stuff like that. It starts at a local level. And then there are things that when we talk about education, yes, federal funding, but all of the decisions of what happens in education happens at the state level and at the local level. And so the policies that we make and the laws that we pass, they have a much more direct impact when you're talking about your municipality and your state.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, they only pay attention to the larger elections, the president. They don't pay attention to what actually affects our day-to-day lives, which is our local government. And you can walk up to anyone on the street, ask them, who's our House of Representatives right now? They won't tell you. They will not tell you. And that's,
a lot of people
sad.
don't know that information. And I'll be perfect. Like I said before, I'm an open book. Until I ran for office, I didn't know who my representative was. I didn't know. I wasn't involved in politics until I started running. And the most vocal and the most political I had gotten was going to the ballot box. And when I started running for office, I saw how much that needs to change, and we need to educate people about politics on a local level, for sure.
Yeah, and also going beyond just voting for party, not policy, because a lot of our House of Representatives, they've been there 30 plus years, and it's a position that's supposed to be constantly changing. And it's sad that we play that identity politics. Why do you think we're so polarized with identity?
Oh, I think that has a long history, actually. When I think about why we're so polarized, it's been building for a very long time. And people will tell you that it's only been since Trump was elected in 2016, and it's only because of this, and it's only because of that. And I don't think there is just one thing. It's a lot of things that have built up over time, and it's a long history. I mean, the history of this country, we've got these ebbs and flows of being united and being divided. And when you look at those ebbs and flows, when we're divided, those are typically the times that we've had the worst experiences. And COVID's a good example of that. We're very divided right now. And unfortunately, because of that division, it's this virus that doesn't play politics. It doesn't play parties. It doesn't play skin color. It doesn't play gender. It is not, it's not, it doesn't delineate between people.
Yeah.
And, but it's been politicized. This virus has been politicized, and that's not okay.
No.
Basically what it comes down to at the end, to me, is it goes back to listening. We have to listen to everyone, diverse perspectives, but we also need to make sure that we're working together to come to solutions together. And that's called compromise. That's not something people do very well sometimes. So I would really like to see us do a lot more work to come together and hear diverse perspectives and find solutions together.
All right. I like that answer. So the judges in the court, they're biased and unbiased. Are you biased?
I think we all have bias.
Yeah.
We all have bias in some fashion. So I can't say I'm not biased. That would be a lie, and I'm not going to lie. I do try to remain impartial as much as I can. And my hope is I've surrounded myself with folks that, you know, my really close friends and family, they call me out on my BS. So when I start to act biased, they tell me, you're acting biased and you need to stop. And my hope is that I will continue to be surrounded by those people, because I want people to check me. I want people to say, this is not okay. And you need to make decisions that are better for everyone, not just for the people that you care about, and not just the interests that you hold in your heart. And it's hard. It's really hard, because our biases come from very, very young. We build those biases over a long time. And
it's so hard to recognize them.
It really is.
When you mentioned how COVID is politicized, it reminded me of how exactly 19 years ago today, everyone bought U.S. flags, and something like that was actually uniting us. It didn't divide us. That U.S. flags from all these stores were sold out, and then I'd like to see more of that, where we're coming together instead of fighting each other, looking at the individual, not just a certain group of people, as in their skin color, their occupation, anything like that.
For sure. And even then, you know, when we experienced 9/11, for several weeks after, there were biases that people, you know, they looked at folks who had a different skin tone, who had brown skin and looked like they might come from the Middle East, and they attacked those people. And, you know, that was rare. It didn't happen nearly as often as we're seeing on the news right now, but it did happen. And, you know, the only way we're going to succeed is if we do things with compassion and mercy and a desire to work together. That's the only way we're going to succeed. So we have to stop dividing, and we have to come together for sure, and buy more flags.
So in this generation, there's so many people that are young that have looked into politics, because it's been a wild 4 years. And for them, it's kind of hard, because if they're, let's say they want to be Democrat and they're in a Republican household, or they want to be liberal, but they're in a Democrat household, it makes it hard for the young voter to vote what they want, because then they have to feel obliged to what the parent or the household needs to be voted for. How would you resolve that? What do you think could be the best scenario for anybody to pick what they think is the best party for them?
So to pick a party, I think really so every party has a statement that they put out, and some pillars that they build the party on. And all you have to do is go to the Democratic Party webpage, and you can find those pillars right there in front of you. And you can look at those and evaluate, does this match what I believe? Is this who I am? And, you know, quite frankly, no party fits a person exactly, not one of them. And so you just have to figure out where your values lie and how close they are to the values of the parties that are created. You can also decline to state a party on your party registration. You don't have to say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm an independent, I'm a Green, I'm a Libertarian. You don't have to do that. You can decline to state. You just don't fill in the party affiliation. There's one drawback to that, is you don't get to participate in the primary election, but you know, you're not outright saying a specific party affiliation, and you can still vote in the general election. It's tough. It's, you know, because the parties, they have value statements that they publish, and like I said, those don't fit. I'm registered a Democrat, but it doesn't fit me perfectly. There are some things that I disagree with in the Democratic Party. There are some things I disagree with in the Republican Party. It just depends on your values and how close they come to the party registration. And again, you don't have to register with a party.
Yeah, that's what I did, is I put myself as independent individual, because I personally am not a fan of the two-party system, because even George Washington himself was against that, because all it does is that polarizes. You're either this or that. You're either this, you're fully this, you're not this at all. And that's
and you can see it in the rhetoric that people are speaking because they say, oh, that's a Republican, and they want it all in this neat little box with a bow on the top. That's a Republican for you, or that's a Democrat for you. And that's typically not how it works. I've actually talked to thousands of voters in my district, and the people I talk to, generally speaking, not even generally, the majority of people I talk to who are registered with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, neither are that neat little box with the bow on the top. They're very complex people, very complex individuals, that's human. It's, people will try to say that they're one issue voters, but one issue doesn't dictate our lives. One issue doesn't dictate what I do. If I go drive on the street, that has nothing to do with, I don't know, I'm trying to think, education, they're very separated. I'm not a one issue voter. I'm not one issue education. Education is important to me. Roads are important to me. Women's rights are important to me. The health and sanctity of people is important to me. I'm complex. I'm a human being. And so because I'm complex, there is no one party that could tell me everything about myself. So when you register to vote, you just need to do your best to pick a party that fits you.
Yeah, I love that. And then also look at the individual, not the party, like that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to candidates, get to know them. Most of them are pretty open. They'll gladly, and if they won't talk to you, there's a reason for it.
That's a good reason we're doing this show, to get the word out of exactly what's going on, what you choose. So,
yep. Yeah.
Well, then, if I could ask, then you said how you can choose either Democrat, Republican, non-party. Is there a way that people could choose Democrat and Republican, or two of each, or a blend, or is it just one-sided? You can either be.
That's a really good question, actually. You can't have a dual party affiliation in your registration. So you can't be registered for two parties at the same time. You can change it anytime you want, up to 28 days before an election. So you have up until 28 days before the election, you can change your party as much as you want. You can change it weekly or daily or whatever. Once that 28-day mark hits, whatever your registration is on that day, that's how you vote. That's the registration you'll vote under. One of the ideas that I've had, and I haven't talked about it a lot, but I would be interested to see legally and ethically and just how it would work if people were able to have like a primary status and a secondary status. So like if I wanted to be primary Democrat and then secondary independent, what would that look like? How would that work? I think that would be a fascinating idea. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I would really like the opportunity to investigate it and see what that might look like.
That'd be a cool change to see in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, beyond education, can you list anything else you would love to see change while in office?
Yeah, absolutely. So infrastructure is another thing I think we really need to work on in New Mexico. And that's everything from our roads to internet. We've seen in stark contrast how important broadband access is for education and businesses. And we've quite frankly failed pretty badly this year. And so I would really like to see us invest in those areas, especially broadband in the rural areas of the state. When people think of Rio Rancho and they think of my district, which is on the northwest side of the city, Rio Rancho has this reputation of being, oh, that's that suburb. They have everything they need there. But, in my district, on the far west side of my district, there are folks without running water or electricity. And, some people live out there by choice. More power to you. That's what you want. You want to live off the grid, go for it. But they should at least have the option. So some people live out there because it's all they can afford, and they should be able to have running water and electricity for their home. And, broadband access. When students are learning and their internet is unreliable, it makes it harder to learn online. And this, from everything I'm seeing, this situation of having to be online is going to go on for quite a while. And so we need to invest and make sure that people have the resources they need. Then there's things like our roads. And when I drive around in Rio Rancho, I mean, thank goodness they're doing some stuff about Southern and some of the other roads down there. Yeah, exactly. I live in Northern Meadows and I drive on Unser every day, and oof, it's painful. So I'm really hoping that we can do something about that too. And then, you know, some of our bigger neighborhoods in Northern Meadows, for example. Sorry, my dog's joining us. This is Chewy. Hi, buddy. In here in Northern Meadows, it's grown quite a bit. And some of the roads that we have out here in Northern Meadows, they're not adequate to support the population out here. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make some changes there too. That's very micro, it's very small, but it has big impacts for families in this district. So stuff like that, we need to work on infrastructure. And then another thing I would like to see, so many things I'd like to fix, but when we talk about funding, we talk about, no, you can't be on the table. Sorry, dude. Oh. When we talk about funding, one of the things that we have is capital outlay funds that come from the state. And right now, the capital outlay funds can be spent any number of ways. And I would like to see more transparency with that. I would like to see people able to say, well, look, that's where that money went. And I firmly believe that each representative is given a pot of money for their district. That money should be spent in their district, not somewhere else. That money was given to me to work for my constituents. And so that's what I want to see happen. I want it transparent, and I definitely want to see that money stay in districts. And I also really want us to work on safety in a number of ways. You know, we hear people talk about this defund the police thing, and it's not really defund the police. It's more like, let's make sure that the money is going where it needs to go, rather than investing that money in heavily armored things for the police force. Maybe we could spend it on mental health services so that we have less violence. I feel like we can use our money more wisely so that we can prevent violence before it happens. And that's something that's really important to me too. So many things that I want to fix and so many things I want to work on. Those are just a couple.
Yeah. I hear about this all the time, but like, and then people forget about the mental health of the police officer, how they get training at the beginning, but then afterwards they're done. They don't get any psychological screening even after all the things they go through. And you're right, New Mexico is home. We need to take care of it. And like a lot of other states, they see us as like this poor state that all it has is Breaking Bad and green chili. And but a lot of us, we love it here. And it's always awesome to see those of us like you who care deeply about it, who don't just want to go flee it and actually want to improve it instead of just letting it go further and further down. All right.
Yeah,
Fabien?
I love New Mexico. It's a beautiful place with wonderful people. I'm originally from California, and I still go home and visit my mom from time to time. And whenever I go, California has this sunshiny, everybody's so happy and friendly. And, it's really interesting because being a native Californian, I actually don't find that's true. I think New Mexicans are much friendlier, much warmer. And, I love this state. I love we have so much opportunity here. And if we do it right, we can build our economy. We can do so much for young folks and make sure that they have the resources they need to succeed. We have so much potential, and I would love to tap into it and help us be as successful as we can.
Awesome. Well, then on that note, I have one final question to ask you, and it's probably the most important question for the simple fact that everyone has to have an answer. Red or green?
That's a great question. I love it. When I eat chili, it's green.
Awesome. Finally, not a Christmas.
Yeah, everyone's been saying Christmas.
No, I'm not a Christmas. And quite honestly, I moved to the wrong state when it comes to food because Spicy and I don't agree with each other. And so I'm all about the mild green.
Awesome. So yeah, this has been really fun. I feel like I've learned a lot, Ms. Helean. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just one thing I want to encourage young folks everywhere, from birth to 18, make sure that you get involved. Make sure you make your voice heard. And if you feel like you're not being heard, you can call me anytime, 312-9400. You can call me anytime. I would be glad to help you make sure that your voice is heard.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Text. I know people like to text, so you can text that number too.
Sweet.
All right.
Thank you for your time. It was an amazing conversation, and I learned a lot.
I had so much fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.